Today we're going to cover some stuff that's going on at the state level. California Association of Realtors had a recent meeting up in Sacramento. They met with all their legislatures and had a pretty successful meeting, and a lot of stuff was being discussed. So I'm going to go over some of that stuff right now and bring you as up to date as I can. But on May 21st at 10 a.m., we're going to have a legal panel, and I'm pretty proud of it. It's a pretty darn good panel. I'm going to moderate it, and I've got a whole bunch of questions for the panel. The panel will be Ed Zorn, who is the chief legal counsel for the C.A.R. your multiple listing service. Neil Kalin, who is the primary attorney who is in charge of drafting forms, and he'll provide a update on forms that are going to be coming out very shortly from C.A.R. In the June release, as well as some additional forms that they're working on. Very important forms for December. And Jeanette Feldman, and Jeanette is an escrow expert. We've been getting a lot of questions lately regarding escrow related issues, and so I was introduced by several of the top brokers that work inside the association, and she's on the escrow advisory committee. So that's going to be pretty darn good. I'm pretty excited about it. So first of all, let me talk about what's going on with transaction coordinators. There is a working group that's working with the California Department of Real Estate, and they're it's a transaction coordinator advisory group. They're putting together a whole lot of information. They were going to release some transaction coordinator forms, an advisory form, which included some consents from clients and some things like that. But because there were so many controversial comments, they've decided to hold off on the transaction coordinator forms till December, and I'm going to let Neil next week explain what's exactly going on. But there's questionnaires for hiring transaction coordinators. There's going to be advisories. There's going to be information sheets. It's going to be quite excellent. They're also going to integrate those forms and the changes that take place with the RPA and several other forms, again, for a December release, not for right now. The objective of all of this is because what's happening, and it happens all the time, things sort of morph and things change, and what was once a very helpful, non-controversial use of certain people with certain skill sets to help realtors expedite and more efficiently handle their transactions has now morphed into something that it wasn't supposed to be. The transaction coordinator is supposed to be an administrative support person or group of persons. It is not, they're not parties to the transaction. They're certainly not the realtors in charge of the transactions. They're not brokers. And in some cases, they're taking over the responsibilities that belong to both the broker and the agent who's handling the transaction. So it's a couple of key issues that need to be addressed and will be addressed over the next couple of months. One, obviously, is disclosure to the client of who this person is and who they may get contacted by, and the transparency that goes with that. There's liability related issues, of course, because if the transaction coordinator makes a mistake, that mistake can end up falling onto the lap of either the agent and or the broker, particularly if the transaction coordinator is either unlicensed and handles which should be licensed activity, or is unaffiliated with any brokerage, is not a licensee, or is a licensee but doesn't have a supervising broker, or is a licensee but the supervising broker isn't the broker who is in charge of the particular side of that transaction. So all of those things can be very complicated. Issues of compensation, how the disclosures should be made, again, with the goal being transparency and client understanding and consent. And then, of course, some of the more modern issues of the appropriate use of AI with transaction coordinators, the proper use of data sharing, and risk allocation. So again, they're going to be working with them. I've been in discussions with the California Department of Real Estate, who are also looking at these issues and will probably come up. I don't know if it'll be in 2026 because it takes so long for bureaucracy to work, but I know that the DRE staff is working diligently both with C.A.R. and on its own to create guiding and clarifying regulations so that people will understand what needs to be done. And sometime, probably within the next couple of months, as far as the C.A.R. Situation is concerned, all of this will be submitted to the Standard Forms Committee, and the association has members on those committees to help provide guidance. As a realtor to the lawyers working at C.A.R., I'll be working with the Department of Real Estate, and hopefully we can get something that makes a lot of sense to you guys. But at this particular time, no forms have been finally approved, so just keep that in mind. I want to make sure I cover everything. Yes, I did. And so we'll keep you posted. Keep an eye on the newsletters when I do any kind of an update or this rant or any other type of information coming from the board. It's going to be important. Another issue that may or may not affect you, but will certainly affect people coming into the business, is that there's a task force working to modernize licensing and the relevance of licensing, along with broker oversight. And so there's a task force. They're looking at, for example, should there be a property management a specialty license? How are licensing and the new compensation structures working? What are evolving disclosure issues that would impact licensing? What about insurance and how does that impact licensing? Risk management concerns, certainly. Broker supervision of independent contractor issues. All of these things are being looked at. In my view, the property management specialization, I think, would be a very good idea, because property management is the second most likely way that a real estate professional is going to get sued, dual agency being first, of course. And we need to make sure that the people that are handling property management are fully informed and not simply amateurs stepping into the business for revenue purposes. So the other thing that the licensing task force is looking at that I think is going to be critical is education and testing. I'm a firm believer that information is power, and that those of you that attend these types of sessions, those that will attend the legal panel next week, are miles ahead, particularly in the legal arena, because you're being given information that is critically important to you. I suspect that it's already been determined, and I think realistically, that, and we've heard this for a long, long time, that the exam is irrelevant to the current practice, and everybody is pretty much aware that there needs to be a change in the way new people are tested. There needs to be an update in mandatory and relevant ongoing education, particularly in light of what's going on with things like artificial intelligence, compensation restructuring, issues relating, for example, to different types of MLS models that are being discussed right now. And so the need for ongoing education in all fields, not just yours, but in mine as well, is something that's being looked at, and hopefully there will be more of an enhanced relevancy to some of this stuff. Um, Obviously, brokers have a duty to supervise. One of the issues being discussed, and I believe is going to happen this year, is going to be that the regulation 2725 that governs how brokers supervise is going to be amended. They're going to probably add a duty on behalf of brokers to supervise independent contractors without worry that supervision and mandatory education by the broker is not going to interfere with the independent contractor status of the licensee. And then, of course, they're going to have to make sure that the broker has tools available so that he or she can enforce the mandatory education on their agents. And because right now, frankly, a lot of agents opt to not attend the education that brokers offer. And of course, all of that will be sorted out, and we'll keep you posted how that's going to look over the next couple of months. Obviously, there's a role for your association as realtors. When I talk to staff, they understand very clearly, as do the directors, that it is critical that the associations work with their members and with these task forces and with the Department of Real Estate, which is one of my jobs, to make sure that that these people get feedback from all of you on what needs to be done. We're going to talk about this at the legal panel next week. We have, as I mentioned, Neil Kalin, who's an outstanding lawyer from C.A.R., who is going to be asked some questions. I happen to know this because I know the moderator, me, pretty well. So again, what are the practical things that need to be done to change the way we license people, the way we require mandatory training, the way we require ongoing broker supervision and training? All of these things are being looked at, particularly in light of, again, artificial intelligence and its impact. Some of the other issues that are being discussed both at the NAR as well as at the C.A.R. level is I expect very soon there to be two changes or potential changes to the Code of Ethics. One being right now, if you have a license, you can practice anywhere in California, just like I can. But the reality is that even though you may be in Anaheim, you may be in Diamond Bar, you may be in Orange County, LA County, Riverside County, and you know those markets, you're not familiar with markets outside your area of expertise, generally speaking. And so two things need to be looked at. One is, are you going to refer that client, and what is the duty to advise your client or your potential client of what the referral fees might be, because that referral fee may impact their cost going forward. The second question has to do with competency. Right now, competency is usually discussed in the context of, what is my area of expertise? Am I a residential person? Am I a vacant land person? Do I do a little of both? What about commercial? What about industrial? What about investment? What about syndication? And that's really how we look at competency, based on your field of expertise. But there is a strong movement, whether it'll happen this year or next, to include geography that says, look, if I practice in Los Angeles County or Orange County, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to have information and specific knowledge about issues in San Francisco or in Napa or in some other area, the desert. So those issues are being looked at to provide guidance to realtors as to what their duties are in a geographic standpoint, particularly in light of the fact that there are multiple listing service and association memberships. Um, there are inconsistent and different escrow and title issues between Northern and Southern California. There are differences in the way disclosures are handled. There are issues relating to artificial intelligence and of course training and all of those things. So again, as all of these things are being looked at, and probably more so than any other time that I've been working with your association, there is a look at bringing things forward. I think that the lawsuits that NAR and all of us were involved in have made us all realize that, with artificial intelligence technology, changing expectations, more government intrusion, there really needs to be a fresh look at a whole lot of these things. Speaking of artificial intelligence, that would be another whole rant. Be aware, and I'm not sure, I haven't had a chance yet to talk to your chief executive officer or your president, but one of the things that came out of the C.A.R. meetings is that there is a desperate need for a standardized broker policy that should be inserted in a broker manual on how his or her agents are going to treat artificial intelligence. And my firm, myself primarily, worked on an artificial intelligence policy for brokerages, which we're going to be distributing in some manner. Not my call, but I'm hoping to every broker in the association. I've run it by the Department of Real Estate, and all of their comments are included. I've run it by the C.A.R. MLS attorney, and all of his comments are included. And I've run it by a woman named Summer Gralick, who is an expert on office compliance manuals and office compliance. And I've included all of their comments. It's been vetted very carefully, and so that is going to become available to you, hopefully very, very soon. Issues like disclosing AI altered images, issues like AI generated descriptions, issues like when does using AI cross the line into the licensed practice of real estate, data privacy, algorithm bias, which could lead to a fair housing issue. All of those kinds of things were discussed at C.A.R., and I've included in this proposed policy manual that will be available to you. I'm hoping that that will create some form of a standardized practice, at least in the association and the geography of our area, and hopefully it'll lead to more clearly defined disclosures and things of that nature. There's a lot of changes that Lori's going to be working on regarding the code of ethics enforcement, continuance fees, changes to the code of ethics. I am going to be working on. I've actually got it about 75% done. There was a bulletin that came out last month on the DRE's position regarding the use of artificial intelligence, and what I've done is I've taken that into the professional standards arena and said, well, what about the code of ethics? How does it treat the use of artificial intelligence? And like I said, I've got an article done. I'm actually running it through AI, and once I figure out how to get all that copied and put together, we'll finalize that, and you'll have a newsletter that will be coming out very shortly. It'll be a special newsletter. If you get my newsletter directly, great. If you don't, you can check with Lori. She'll let you know how the board's going to disseminate that newsletter. If you want me to mail it to you directly, my email address is jvg That's JVG at Tyler, Tyler, law, LLP.com. JVG at Tyler Law, LLP.com. If you send me an email and you are a member of the association, we will send it to you as soon as it's available. So that's basically it for professional standards. A lot going on there as well. There's going to be some updates on seller concessions. And then lastly, again, the Department of Real Estate is looking very, very carefully at AI and transaction coordinators, particularly when it comes to unlicensed activity when using AI or when using a transaction coordinator. There's going to be changes to the regulations, and I believe to the way you make disclosures. So that's pretty much it. A lot going on, probably in my very lengthy career, more than I've ever seen before. Things regarding disclosure, things regarding the Department of Real Estate. And by the way, the Department of Real Estate is not your enemy. They're working very hard to clarify and make it very clear to those who take the time to pay attention what needs to be done to operate in an ethical manner and to discharge your fiduciary duty properly. My next rant is going to be on the legal obligations that you have when using closed or private type listings or office exclusives and things of that nature. Lots happening in that arena as well. Going to be a primary topic of conversation at the upcoming legal panel. We're also going to be doing during the summer an updated legal lowdown for you, and those used to be called the brown bags till somebody got a hold of the name and modernized it, but it's still the same thing. It's a legal update for me on over a 2-hour period with questions and answers. And so we'll have that for you coming up shortly. Also, if you have any questions before the May 21st date, get them to Lori Smith, and she will make sure we get them and we'll make sure we answer them. We're going to also carve out a session for Q&A from those that attend the legal panel on the 21st. So until the next time, this is John Giardinelli on behalf of the association and John's Rants signing off, and thank you for taking the time to watch this program.